Welcome to White Belt Wednesdays. I'm your host, Travis, and today we'll be diving into the world of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu with essential tips and tricks in bite-sized podcast episodes every Wednesday. Ready to level up your skills? Well, let's roll. Is Jiu-Jitsu for everyone? I'm going to say no. And today I'm going to talk about what I recently saw on Instagram and why Jiu-Jitsu isn't for everyone and why we shouldn't be judging people if they don't want to train Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So the other day I was scrolling through Instagram and I saw a Instagram reel from Brad Lee, who's a big influencer on YouTube, millions of followers and whatnot. And the reel was talking about how he tried Jiu-Jitsu and he didn't like it because he was rolling on the ground with hot, sweaty dudes and he just couldn't get over that fact. Something that kind of made it funny to me too was he claimed to be a black belt in Ching Ching Pow, talking about racking a gun and shooting someone. So if he's ever in a situation where he might need to defend himself, he's just going to pull a gun and shoot someone. Now, everyone has their own ideas, right? But the whole thesis behind this episode is Jiu-Jitsu isn't for everyone, and judging someone for not wanting to pursue it is elitist and unproductive to getting other people in on the door, right? So now Brad's video might be a little tongue-in-cheek, and it might show just a little bit of his insecurities as a person that were kind of exposed when he tried jiu-jitsu for the first time. Well, I don't know if it's his first time, but during this specific reason. And I think it says a lot about a person when they bring up these weird reasons for not wanting to do it, and rolling with sweaty guys is kind of one of them to me. But I mean, as a jiu-jitsu blue belt, it's different for me now because I've been doing it for so long. But we have to be honest with ourselves when we hear someone say that jiu-jitsu isn't for them, and that's okay, right? So here go some of the reasons why I think that people shouldn't train jiu-jitsu or jiu-jitsu isn't for them. The first one is physical demands. Jiu-jitsu is very intense. There's a high potential for injury, and then also some people have pre-existing conditions and limitations with their body that they can't train jiu-jitsu. It just doesn't work for them. Prime example, if you guys don't know, John, my old co-host, is an example of someone, he just can't train jiu-jitsu anymore. It's not feasible for him to go back on the mats because his shoulders are so shot. He doesn't have mobility in them. He doesn't have a full range of motion on them. He has limited strength in certain positions, and he got his blue belt before they actually went completely out on him, but it just doesn't make sense for his body to roll jiu-jitsu anymore. Now, could he go in and possibly be very selective with rolling, try his best with certain techniques and everything like that? Absolutely, right? But then it goes into, does he want to put his body through that and potentially further injure himself? I mentioned before that people that listen to the show, sometimes they're musicians, sometimes they're high-level C-class or C-suite people. They have to take breaks from jiu-jitsu, or they just can't train jiu-jitsu anymore because they can't risk not performing at work. And so those are very important things. And as fellow jiu-jitsu practitioners, we shouldn't be judging people and being elitist when they say that, oh, my body can't handle it, if they truly can't handle it. Now, some people use that as an scapegoat to not train jiu-jitsu, and that's okay too. If they're uncomfortable doing it, they're uncomfortable doing it, and we shouldn't judge them for that. Just remember that. Next thing might be the psychological aspect, which I honestly think is more of people not training jiu-jitsu than anything else, more than the physical, more than financial and everything like that. I think the psychological aspect of jiu-jitsu is the thing that exposes people the most and makes them not want to train it, right? So the possibility of like discomfort, close contact with people, like Brad Lee said, competition, and the potential of failure. Brad Lee also is someone that is very successful, and psychologically it might be off-putting to be terrible at something again. And for a person like that, I mean, what are you going to do? They don't want to be a failure. They've built themselves up so much that they don't want to try a new endeavor where they're not going to be super successful. And I'm not saying that's his point of view on it, but I think it might be a little bit. People often feel like they are helpless when they first start, and it can cause like this psychological battle of you think you are someone, and then you step on the mats and you realize like how little you know and how little you can do against someone if they are slightly trained. That might not be a battle that someone wants to face. Honestly, they might not want to face that constant. If someone, like I mentioned, I got beat up and realized if I got in a street fight, then I would have died, right? And I took that as I need to train. I need to do this more. Some people take that as I don't ever want to face that feeling again. And that's okay. And honestly, I think this might have been what Brad Lee was talking about. This might have happened to him because he might have gotten to the class, maybe done a few techniques, realized that he's super uncomfortable. This is weird to him, and has no idea what's going on, and he just left. He's like, I'm good. And once again, I go back to he might have been a little tongue in cheek in his video to kind of get engagement and riled up because it has like almost 2,000 comments, 10,000 likes. It's probably one of his most engaged with posts lately. So I think, like I mentioned, I think the psychological aspect of jiu-jitsu is what gets people the most off the mats, right? Another thing is the financial commitments. Jiu-jitsu is not cheap in a lot of places. Some places charge hundreds of dollars a month for you to train jiu-jitsu. Sometimes there's places that have punch cards. They might have monthly commitment. You might have to sign a contract. And for people, they're like, look, single income household, I'm barely making ends meet. I can't afford to put on another bill on me, even if I know that it's going to help me psychologically. It might help me physically. It might get me more in shape. It's not within the books right now. That's okay. People have their needs and they have their priorities. I talk about it all the time. I wear certain hats depending on what I need to do. Sometimes I put a podcaster hat on. Sometimes I put a dad hat on. Well, I always have my dad hat on, right? But you gotta weigh out the pros and cons of each situation for the person. Also, another thing is time constraints. Jiu-Jitsu academies, unless you go to a big one, typically don't have a lot of classes. They don't have a lot of time slots. My academy started a 10:30 a.m. class just for me because I had to switch. Before, they didn't have any 10:30 class. They didn't have any morning classes. All they had was evening classes. Now, if you're someone that works during the evening and there's no jiu-jitsu academy around you that has morning classes, then you just can't train. It's okay. That jiu-jitsu is just not for that person. We shouldn't judge them because what's going to happen? A lot of the times you'll hear someone say, I don't have the time for it. It's like, well, you make time for it. It's like, well, I literally can't make time for it if there is no time around me to do it. Now, if there was like a class and this person can make it, then maybe, once again, we go back to maybe there's another reason why they don't want to train. A lot of the times, jiu-jitsu academies don't have a lot of classes, including mine, that people can make it to. I still only get to train twice a week on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And if I don't make it to a Tuesday or Thursday because of other commitments, then I miss out on training that week. And it sucks, right? But that's some things that just happen. Finally, probably the most important one for why people might not train jiu-jitsu is personal preference. Some people just don't like jiu-jitsu. Some people rather do striking. There's a varying interests of fitness goals and achievements and goals that they want to do for their self-defense or whatever it is. And not everyone enjoys grappling. And that's okay. Not everyone wants to be a wrestler. Not everyone wants to be a judoka. Not everyone wants to be a Muay Thai fighter. We have to acknowledge that some people just want to box. We have to acknowledge that some people just want to do Aikido. They just want to do Tai Chi, whatever it is. And it's real elitist of us as a community if we frown upon these people that just want to do a martial art, whether it's legit or not, and they just want to be around like-minded people. They just want to get a little bit healthier. They just want that third space where they can go away from their family, and maybe jiu-jitsu is just too intense for them, and that's not what they want. We shouldn't judge people for wanting to do Taekwondo, Aikido, Tai Chi, Muay Thai, whatever it is, if they decide that jiu-jitsu is not for them and it doesn't pique their interest, okay? The biggest hurdle that I see a lot of people get into when it comes to jiu-jitsu is this elitist mindset that we're the best martial art, which we are. I'm not going to lie. We are the best martial art. But then we frown upon other people because they don't want to train. And if they have a legit reason or not, it's none of our business, and we should be okay with that. So just remember that there's individual differences. Everyone has a unique motivation and their own ability and limitations, and we should acknowledge that and be okay with that. We should acknowledge that people have alternative paths that they want to go down, and whether it's certain fitness goals, whether it's certain self-defense goals or personal growth, right? If someone wants to go train Krav Maga because they feel like that's more legit than jiu-jitsu, then that's okay. And that's the beautiful thing is we have to celebrate the variety of people that do decide to come into the gym and train, and we do have to we should celebrate anyone in the martial arts space that's trying to do better, as long as they're not trying to promote their Tai Chi as like the ultimate martial arts, saying that no one else is better. Because I think Jiu-Jitsu can fall into that same realm of Jiu-Jitsu is the only martial art. Jiu-Jitsu is the best martial arts. We'll beat everyone up in Jiu-Jitsu. And then when you get against like a good Muay Thai fighter and then you get knocked out before you ever even can get a hold on them, then it's like, well, did it really work? We have to avoid the stereotype that Jiu-Jitsu is the ultimate workout and the ultimate self-defense solution, because it's not true. It's not true. Remember that. It's might be for some people, it might not be for everyone. But I definitely don't think I think it's the best. If you were to choose one, I think it's probably the best for self-defense. But it's definitely not the best, right? Because I think the best for martial arts for self-defense is a combination. So remember, if someone doesn't want to train jiu-jitsu, that's okay. It's their choice. Avoid judgment as long as they're not saying that jiu-jitsu doesn't work or anything like that. Then we can kind of look at things differently. But if they just don't want to train jiu-jitsu, that's okay. We should be happy that people tried it. Or even if they know what jiu-jitsu is, that's a win for the jiu-jitsu community if people are talking about jiu-jitsu, because that's going to bring someone else into the community. And if we always shun people away that say it's not for them, then it could cause other people outside of the community to not want to train jiu-jitsu because of what they saw someone else go through for not wanting to train jiu-jitsu, right? So that's all I got today. Let me know what you guys think, why jiu-jitsu isn't for everyone, or if it is for everyone, and let me know your personal experiences. Thank you guys so much for listening. That's all I got. Peace. Thank you for listening to this episode of White Belt Wednesday. If you have any questions or comments, please message me on social media, and maybe they can even become a future episode. Don't forget to check out the Patreon for early and exclusive content. Links for everything are in the show notes.